Hey, everybody, and welcome. Aloha. I'm Natalie, and this is Life After a Cult, the channel where we expose cult nonsense. We laugh at the absurdity, and we hopefully unbrainwash ourselves in the process. Aaron Smith-Levin is joining me today. Hey, Aaron.
Good morning, Natalie.
So the Clearwater had a city council meeting this week, which we are really going to get into this. And let me tell you, it was giving cult courtroom drama meets municipal meltdown. And who better to unpack it than Aaron Smith-Levin, the man who is basically Scientology's worst Yelp review come to life, I would say. All right. You were there. Oh, I got to welcome everybody. Hey, moderators. Thank you for being here. Hello to everybody in the chat. Members, I see you. Thank you so much for being here. We do have a question of the day if you want to go ahead and answer that, which is, what would you name the street that Scientology's Fort Harrison Hotel is on? So go ahead and put your answers in the chat. If you are on the replay, drop it in the comments because I want to go back and read it. Now, Aaron, you were there. And one of my biggest questions before we get like mad into the council meeting is really actually about the protests, the Clearwater protests that have been going on. It seems like it's really growing, like you guys are getting good responses. And was it just me, or did I notice it seemed like more responses after the Clearwater City Council meeting? It seemed like, I mean, car after car were honking.
Oh, the honking?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was about the same as previous. I didn't notice there was actually less traffic out yesterday than there was normally on an average week. But I thought it was about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's continuing to grow. People are showing up. It looks like it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It is, yeah.
Are you getting any feedback from people, other residents who didn't know about Scientology before? Like, I noticed people will come up to you guys and share like a story or a connection to Scientology.
So what was the question?
Are you seeing more of that? Do you think people are getting curious because they see you all out there every week on Friday?
Getting curious about what?
About the protests in Scientology?
I started to be such a difficult interview.
No worries. We'll start over, even though this is live.
It seems like everyone who comes by already knows about Scientology.
Yeah, they do. But maybe I've seen on some other streams I've been watching, and it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm having a hot flash. My glasses are fogging up. Look at that. But on Sandy McKenna's, I've been seeing more people come up, and even on Cheryl's. So maybe it's more over there. But I find that interesting. Whereas in the beginning, not as many people approach them, but they're just getting a lot more. So I feel like it's more.
Sandy and Cheryl tend to walk more around like the perimeter than I do. I babysit Tom pretty much. And the thing is, where we are in front of the superpower building, we actually just don't get a lot of people walking by.
Yeah.
That's why the other location was so much better.
Yeah.
But then the downtown pizza folks complained that we were hurting their business by making all the cars honk at that intersection, and we weren't trying to upset downtown business owners, even ones with Scientologist landlords. So we're back over at the superpower building. I do think more and more people that are driving by expect us to be there and kind of are excited to. A lot of people drive by a whole bunch of times and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get a lot of people walking by that location. So I guess I think what's probably happening is the people that go out of their way to walk by us are the ones who know we're there or see us or decided to come out and say hi to us and stuff like that. And that does seem to be happening more.
Yeah. When you were at the meeting, at the Clearwater City Council meeting the other day, I was watching, and all I could think about is like, what is the vibe like in the room? Like, what did it feel like before it started? There were so many people there because there was the Scientology buying the street, and then there was a whole issue a whole thing they were voting on afterward about fluoride in the water. There was an overflow room of people, but what did it feel like actually being there?
It feels like getting ready for a fight. And it's a little weird because you could see that the council members, it's not like they're sitting up. It doesn't feel like they're sitting up there being like, wow, we're really interested to hear what the people who showed up today have to say. It's more like they're sitting up there like, here we go. And, they spend so much time talking about, I was elected to represent this. I was elected to represent this. It's like, yeah, you were elected by the people in this room, but they act like, especially Ryan and Michael Menino, we're acting like they're up there and they know better than all the people in Clearwater. And it's like, but why are you taking a position that's at odds with all the people in Clearwater who voted for you? Like, it's super weird. But that is how it felt to me. Like, we're getting ready for the showdown.
Yeah, that's how it looked like. And I was surprised with how many people were actually there. And then it went on for so long. It went on. I know your phone died, but the whole meeting was about 5.5 hours long. Yeah. When you went, what did you think it was going to be that long, or were you surprised like the rest of us were?
I couldn't even believe it continued to go on that long. I mean, the bickering back and forth and talking about whether it was a negotiation or not a negotiation, or I honestly couldn't even believe it went on for that long. Like, and even Mark Bunker said he got so frustrated at what was happening, he had to get up and leave, just out of frustration of Michael Menino and Ryan Cotton going back and forth with Lena and Bruce and fighting for this thing so heavily. When the people who showed up and the other person who made the bid to buy the street gave these guys all the excuse they needed to just delay and let the process carry on. Ryan Cotton acted like the city government was interfering with the normal process. And it's like, this would be the normal process. What are you objecting to? Why are you objecting to someone else coming forward with another great idea and money of what to do with this street? Why are you acting like the process is interfering with your agenda? Like, you're not here for the process. You're here for your desired outcome. And yeah, but honestly, to me, that's how these meetings have always felt like, when a whole bunch of people from the community show up to speak against an issue. Mm-hmm. It feels like it's getting ready for a showdown, because the council members do not give off the vibe at all that they are there and interested and care about what the people have to say. They sound defensive. They look defensive. And it's almost like, wait, I thought this is what Scientology wanted. Why does it seem to be what you want? It should be, this is what Scientology wants, and it's really no skin off your back. They could get it. They could not get it. It depends what they bring to the table. But then it goes beyond that point, where Ryan Cotton and Michael Menino are actually cheerleaders for it. And it's like, that's not what the process is supposed to be either. The city didn't put this street out for sale on an RFP, which is a request for a proposal. Mm-hmm. This was purely a one-sided deal, a one-sided negotiation. And that's what makes it feel like you're getting ready for a showdown. Yeah. And that, these people's minds were already made up. And it's how did you make up your mind on this position without proactively seeking input from as many of the people who voted you as possible? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like, technically they're following the right procedure. They haven't done anything illegal. But that's technically, wouldn't you want to know what your constituents think about this issue before just moving forward, because you can technically, and then when so many of them show up to speak out against it, why are you getting so defensive about it? Like, and honestly, that is exactly how it has felt every single time something is coming up to a vote that is hugely controversial amongst the citizenry. The council members do not give a damn. They really don't.
It really didn't seem like it with a couple of them. What do you think about Ryan Cotton, who's a city council member in Clearwater, being on the city council with his father-in-law? Who was it? What's the other guy's name? Was it Alan?
David Albritton. I thought it was his father-in-law. Mark Bunker said it's actually his stepdad.
That's right. His stepdad, which is worse.
I know. I mean, again, it's legal. They ran for that. They held elections for each one of their seats, but in an entire city of 120,000 plus people, you've only got 5 people in the council members, and 2 of them are intimately related. Seems a little silly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Even
And
though
they're both
it's
voting the same way.
yeah. But then his stepdad was leaning towards giving that 30-day extension.
Only
Me?
as a virtue signal. Only as a virtue
Dang,
signal. Oh, well,
really?
completely. Oh, yeah, yeah. He absolutely said, I'm not where Lena's at on this, but I feel like we should at least. Oh, yeah. Albritton made it very clear this is just for a formality. I think it was his way of somewhat compromising and saying, okay, fine. We've got, it, because remember, there was a part of the meeting where it was being questioned. So are we extending the 30-day window for applications for people who want to buy the street? Or are we just extending this vote by 30 days just to get a better version of this last minute submission that was just made?
Mhm.
And Albritton was very clear. No more submissions. No more submissions. This is just to give this gentleman who came in at the last minute a bit more time to do a somewhat better proposal. But believe Albritton is absolutely going to vote for vacating the street, in my opinion. Now, there's a small chance that this is actually not legal, that actually vacating the street in this way is not legal. I'd actually like to pull up an email.
Yeah, do
Now, I have the email address and the name of the person who sent me this email, but I'm not sure I know their YouTube name. And can I text it to you real quick in the private chat and you let me know? Because I don't want to announce it if I don't. Okay. I know this is
Oh, yeah.
one
Do
of
you want me to tell you who that is?
what their YouTube name is. Yeah.
Fat Grammy.
Okay, good. I thought so. I just didn't. I didn't know for sure.
Yeah, that's
Let me pull up this email. Okay. So she says, this was some proposed talking points if anyone needed a speech. It said, beyond the fact that I personally oppose the sale of South Garden to Scientology, it is against our law. A municipality is empowered to vacate streets only when the vacation is in the public interest or when the street is no longer required for public use and convenience. And then the statute is listed. A quote from Patricia Gleason, Assistant Attorney General, and then there's a date. The City Council should not undertake to vacate any streets in the absence of a determination that the general public would benefit from the vacation or that such streets are no longer required for the public use and convenience. Also, the legislative powers of a city must be exercised for the public benefit, but that does not authorize a municipality to sell or bargain legislation as a means of obtaining revenue. Now, I'm sure Ryan Cotton would argue, oh, there is a public benefit because X, Y, and Z. And you go, this whole transaction was initiated by Scientology for their own benefit. This wasn't something initiated by the city for the public benefit. And this is, I've got to double check where these statutes are coming from and what the quotes apply to. But it seems there's at least a possibility that the council doesn't actually have the authority to just strike the best deal possible if this entire thing is not for the public benefit in the first place. Yeah. So that's an interesting position.
And I agree with you. I don't see how it could be. Do you think that, have you seen anything, I don't think I have, that has showed whether or not Hubbard Hall is going to be used for only Scientology events, or could it also be used in the way that they have, I mean, their spaces in their ideal orgs, they often let other groups use it, and then they claim they had something to do with what the group was doing.
Well, it seems pretty clear that Scientology has at least been telling some of their local non-Scientologist friends who run 501c3s that they'll be able to use the premises. That one lady showed up saying something to that effect. The lady who got up there and pretty much just plugged her nonprofit the whole time.
Yeah.
She gave me the impression that she was under the impression that organizations such as hers were going to have access to this facility. And I guess technically that makes sense. They already let nonprofits use the Crystal Ballroom of the Fort Harrison Hotel.
True.
But, you know, everyone that comes and goes from those events are basically given a Sea Org member chaperone up and down the elevator and throughout the halls to make sure they don't go anywhere else in the Fort Harrison Hotel. which is weird because there's nothing else in the Fort Harrison Hotel other than hotel rooms. But maybe they don't want him sneaking over the Sky Bridge to the Superpower building.
Oh, maybe.
But I'll tell you what, even if that's true, like Ryan Cotton and Michael Menino haven't even cited anything like that.
Yeah.
As some benefit for the city. But it wouldn't be surprised me if Scientology did allow their friends to use it.
Yeah, which would make sense. And I guess they could twist that somehow into being a benefit for the city because it's for nonprofits. If they share it with nonprofits in a way.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know how valid that is. When you were there and the other proposal came in and they were presenting that, or even when the woman brought it up, what was that like in the room? Because at one point, I was watching it on the city's channel because they had great audio and video. So I couldn't hear everything else going on kind of in the back. And I was so curious, like when that proposal came up, hey, we have another idea for this street and it involves doing this memorial and for African Americans. What was that like in the room? Did anybody react to that? Or was it like, did they understand?
I think people were a little confused. Tony had told me as we were walking into the library that he had a friend that was going to make this proposal. So, when they made that proposal, the council members were also a little confused. Because in their minds, the 30-day window had already opened and closed. And it wasn't one of these things where if you get a submission in right before the deadline, somehow that gives you extra time. So the council members were like, well, this is fine. This is great. But we've already been negotiating this other deal for months and we know everything about it. And we've known about this one for about 2 hours. And they were just getting ready to strike the whole thing down and be like, well, thank you, but no thank you, but it's somewhat irrelevant. And then they made a really good argument that it's like, well, hold on. We didn't even know that this thing was up for sale until like a week ago.
Yeah. And
we're supposed to put in a proposal to compete with one that you've been negotiating for 4 months. How is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was a little confusing for people, but that guy did such a good job doing his presentation, didn't he?
He so did. He kept his cool. He was so respectful. I was watching it and I told my audience, I'm like, I want to have his baby. I mean, just so level-headed. I so love that vibe. I thought he did an incredible job and he obviously seems like he had done this before. And to not lose your cool in front of the city council, especially when you're presenting a project, I mean, can be a difficult thing. And I was just like amazed how just chill he was and gave the information and held them accountable at times.
Yeah. One of the things that troubles me the most is that for all the promoting and cheerleading that Ryan Cotton and Michael Menino are doing for this project, neither one of them have actually articulated why Scientology needs the street.
Yeah.
They keep acting like if you listen to everything they say, it sounds like we need Scientology to activate the buildings the way they're promising that they will if we do what they want. And so it doesn't matter if we know why they want to do it. All that matters is if we let them do what they want, then they will then do what we want.
Yeah.
Neither one of them have actually said why Scientology needs the street. Whenever they even get close to doing it, they end up talking about why building Hubbard Hall is good for Clearwater. And you go, no one's keeping them from building Hubbard Hall. It is so frustrating to see these guys walk around and around and around the issue that's being voted on without actually being able to articulate why this is necessary. It's so frustrating. And my experience of getting people to show up to Clearwater City Council meetings and hoping for any change whatsoever has always been frustrating. It has never worked out, but it doesn't mean it's not worth trying.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think that Cotton really believes that David Miscavige is going to revitalize downtown and bring in other businesses like he said he would do over 10 years ago and didn't do and hasn't done. And he seems to think that pulling down some paper from the windows is like, oh, a win.
I don't see how he could believe it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't. That's the thing that got me. I kept watching and thinking like, I just don't understand it. Like, what am I missing? What am I missing? I don't understand his gung-ho-ness
Yeah.
overdoing this or why? Especially like you said, when nobody can answer some basic questions.
I know. I think he thinks, a new broom sweeps clean. And a lot of these city council members, especially in the last few councils, think, it's time to get over all the hurt feelings and everything that's happened in the past. And it's time to move forward. And you're like, who is it that you think isn't doing that? I mean, it's Scientology that if they wanted to develop Clearwater, they would have developed Clearwater. Why is it that everything Scientology wants to do, they go to the city and they hang it in front of their faces as a carrot? And you go, if they wanted to do it, they would do it. The fact that they're always trying to horse trade with the city for every little thing is like, I don't know. I think Ryan thinks he's too smart to be manipulated by David Miscavige. He doesn't realize that's exactly what's happening.
I think you're right. He definitely gives that vibe. I don't know the guy, but he just seems like he is like 100% knows, and this is the truth.
Yeah. He's probably like, I know you guys don't. I met with Miscavige. You guys didn't. I saw the video. You guys didn't.
I love how you called him out on the video. And let's talk about that for a sec. Your speech there was such a mic drop moment. It was perfect. And the audience, the people there who were there at the meeting, I mean, it got a great response during and after. What do you think? I mean, speculating like that what the council felt about that, or Ryan, like, could you see his face? Because the thing is, like, you could see all their faces. I could not.
Oh yeah, he was pissed. Because I was basically talking to him the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, he was pissed. He wasn't interested at all.
Then I'm sure he loved your video from yesterday.
Daddy.
I almost died when you said Ryan Cotton calls David Miscavige, for those that missed it, Daddy Dave.
Daddy. Even the stuff that Ryan said, he's like, well, they started out wanting 3 properties. And you're like, so this wasn't just about a street vacating the street. Then what else did they want? What did they come, what did they come to you with? What was their request? And why do the council members not on their own? The council members can talk to their constituents in the community about anything they want to talk about. There's nothing confidential. Mm-mm. If the city manager tells them in their meetings, well, Scientology submitted a request to vacate the street, blah, 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 blah. Since January or since December when this started, there has been absolutely nothing preventing any of these council members from scheduling their own town hall meeting to talk to the community about their thoughts about this. Nothing. And they're like, well, we're following the procedures. It's like, the people who voted for you do not care if you're following the procedures. That's not where their expectations end. Yeah. They care whether it seems like you actually care about input. And it's hard for people to watch meetings. It's hard for people to show up to meetings. And it's like that they're the council members. Why can't they go out and find out how people feel about this? And then when they finally do find out, if you're just going to act like, well, I know best. What, you know best just because people voted for you? That doesn't mean you know best. I mean, you obviously think you're great and you're wonderful, but wouldn't it be great and wonderful to go out and find out what the people who voted for you actually think, and to act like you care about that?
Yeah.
By the way, did you notice, unless I missed a part of the meeting, I did not see a single Scientologist show up to support this project?
No, the only people I saw, and I watched the whole thing, there were a couple that clearly identified themselves as non-Scientologists, right, which I thought was very interesting, because the few that did speak in support of Scientology buying the street, I felt did it in kind of a weird way. It's almost like they heard everyone else speak and were like, oh crap, I don't want to go up now and do this, but I have to. And it was not strong. They didn't show up and make a strong case for that.
Yeah.
I didn't think so at all. And because no Scientologists were there, or no one representing the project, I think either, right? Who would be? Did anyone?
Nobody representing Scientology or a Scientologist showed up to this meeting to speak in favor of it. I mean, come on. If you're Ryan Cotton, aren't you sitting up there being like, geez, you guys are really just going to hang us out to dry up here? You're not even going to show up and support your own project?
Yeah.
It's like, my goodness.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't
that.
know what's going on there. I don't understand it. Jonathan Wade is someone who ran for council in the last election cycle, or the last election cycle. Well, when I was running, he was running for the other seat.
Mm-hmm.
No. Hold on. Was he running for the other seat or my seat? I can't remember. I know I had a good. He's the guy who went up there and spoke at the end. Jonathan Wade, mm-hmm. and supported the idea of the memorial, but said that it should be in the North Greenwood neighborhood. Damn it. What was the point I was making there?
Something about that Jonathan guy when he
well, something about him being safe pointed by Scientology. He's someone who had ran for council before. That's right. He got up and said that Scientology spends a lot of money in the North Greenwood community to safe point the opinion leaders in that community. Mm-hmm. And there was another guy who went up there and spoke on behalf of the veterans groups. That's another way that Scientology has safe pointed some local organizations and people, is, donating tens of thousands of dollars to some local veterans groups. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting to see people that they have safe pointed show up and speak on their behalf, but none of their own people showed up to speak on their behalf.
Yeah, I would think that if I'm sitting on the city council, I'm thinking exactly that. Like, why are you not here? In any city council meeting I've been to where there's been a project being proposed, maybe by a developer, and citizens who are not down, they don't want it, they show up. The developer shows up, brings people to answer questions.
Yep.
I think this is the first city council meeting I've seen where nobody representing the project shows up. It was nuts. So backwards. What did you think about, and again, because you could see the people better, the city council better, when the mayor was kind of throwing the city manager under the bus and then arguing what's negotiating, what's not negotiating? What do you think that was all about?
I took that differently than a lot of the other people who I've seen commenting about this. I think Bruce thinks of a negotiation as something where both parties have agreed to the outcome and they're just working out details. Mm-hmm. And Ryan Cotton very much seemed to be presenting his objection as objecting to almost the city going back on its word. And Bruce was saying, no, this was not a negotiation. This was just a conversation. Yeah. They said they wanted something, and we authorized this city manager to go explore what they would be willing to give in return for that thing. Mm-hmm. This was not just we all agreed in principle to the transaction, and we're ironing out the details of the transaction. I think Bruce was just responding to how he felt Ryan Cotton was misrepresenting the nature of the talks. That Ryan seemed to be like, we basically authorized her to go get this deal done for us and to get the best deal possible. Mm-hmm. And Bruce was like, no, we just authorized her to find out what the hell they want and what they're willing to give in return. It couldn't be more preliminary. It couldn't be more preliminary. He's like, we've never even discussed it as a body. If the council as a body has never discussed it, and if the citizens have never been informed about it and have never given input about it, it's just a talk. And I think Bruce just defines talking is different than a negotiation. And I think I understand that point.
Yeah. And that does make sense. But I feel like what you just said was such a clearer way of communicating it than the mayor did. Yeah. When the mayor was communicating it, it very much felt like he was throwing the city manager under the bus. And based on her reaction, she really seemed irritated.
Oh.
And she kept kind of hammering like, well, I'm just trying to clarify what my role is here. I was like, whoa, okay. I mean, and it did seem like he was throwing her into the bus. If he would have said what you just said, like that makes it so much more clear. It definitely gave the idea of how divided they seem. And I was kind of surprised by that. Like, wow, like this, you're the mayor. This is your city manager.
Yeah.
It seemed like a weird time to, to say that.
It's also interesting that in a strange way, the city manager can end up with more power or authority than the city council members, because technically she has 5 bosses, but she only has to keep 3 of them happy at any given time. They can't get rid of her without, I'm not sure if it's a majority or a supermajority vote. And if she doesn't like 2 of the council members, so like, in other words, all 5 council members gave Jennifer Poirier, P-O-I-R-E-R, Poirier. I don't know. They all gave her all the things they would need in order to get to a yes vote. She could basically turn that all over to Scientology and be like, screw these guys. If we can just get these guys happy, like to a certain extent, the city manager can decide to push her own agenda through by figuring out the bare minimum she needs to do to get this passed by 3 council members. It's not clear to me, though, that she herself has any particular vested interest or care in this going through. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe because she has 3 council members in her favor, there's no reason for her to speak up as far as advocating for this project. Like, she's got 3 council members to do it for her. There's no reason for her to join in. Perhaps if it wasn't going her way and it was something that she was personally invested in, it would be more obvious.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that she really cares one way or the other about this. I really don't know.
Do you think that, so you don't think that she's necessarily been completely safe pointed by Scientology and is like Ryan Cotton is completely on board with it and pushing it? You think she's just doing what she's being directed to do?
I don't personally think she's been safe pointed by Scientology. I mean, the only reason she's even allowed to talk to David Miscavige about these things is because the council has authorized her to do so.
Yeah.
They could have said, no, we're not interested. And she would have been, I'm sorry, the council said they're not interested.
Yeah, I would not want to be in her shoes.
Yeah.
What do you think would actually happen? Like, let's let this play out. Let's say that Scientology is allowed to buy the street, that they end up approving it. What do you think that's going to look like moving forward?
I think they're just going to end up closing the street down. Like, I'm so confused by it. If you close the street down, what's the point of having the street there? Yeah. And I know someone is like, well, only for Scientologists. You can't identify if someone's a Scientologist by their car.
Yeah.
Like, how do they know who to allow to pull up in front of that thing? Unless, okay, let's think this through. I'm going to guess the street would be completely physically closed to Court Street on the south. And then, I don't know, maybe it's only used for a valet, but how do they know who to let in?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand it. But basically, you can count on the fact that 1 block of South Garden Avenue is just going to be inaccessible to traffic, and it's going to increase traffic in downtown Clearwater. It's going to increase traffic on Court Street and Fort Harrison Avenue, and for literally no one's benefit other than Scientology's. That's why I really think it might genuinely be illegal what they're trying to do. It doesn't matter that there's a slight, tiny monetary benefit in 6 years. That's not for the public benefit. So we'll see.
Do you think they're actually going to start construction on the building, even if they don't get the
They'll start it. You know, they actually announced at the birthday event that they're going to do the groundbreaking on LRH Hall this summer. So, but you remember what they did with the Superpower building? They did a groundbreaking ceremony, and then they let it sit for 15 years.
Yeah.
Basically.
With the shovels, didn't they do the gold shovels and everything?
Yep.
Yeah. So that might just happen again.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Why have the city council members not publicly described their meetings with David Miscavige? I don't understand it.
at like what came up. I'm curious as to what was on their wish list. What I felt was confusing and off was if each individual city council member is being communicated with and saying, these are the 5 things I want, if I were to approve this happening, how do you know those are 5 good things if you've not talked to the public, if you've not done a town hall, if you've not gotten public feedback, if we were to do this? And I think that's where they get in trouble is, are you following the rules? Yeah. But on a topic like Scientology,
Yeah.
I would want to be like 110% transparent, and they did the opposite.
I know. I don't get it. Now, maybe it's because, you and I, because we have YouTube channels, we can, it's easy for us to think about, well, just go and talk to people about it and get feedback. And, I don't know, these people would have to schedule a town hall meeting. And it's like, okay, then why didn't you? It's like, you couldn't have a more controversial topic in this city.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more controversial in this city.
Yeah.
And they didn't even try.
Mm-mm.
And it's like, if you had sat down and had a meeting with David Miscavige, this reclusive guy that, his wife's reported missing in the press, and, you're one of the few people in Clearwater who's the few non-Scientologists who've seen this guy and spoken to this guy in the last 20 years. You're not going to tell anybody about that? You're not going to tell the people about that? You're not going to do a video about it?
Yeah. I wonder if they signed some type of NDA or something, but then they should disclose that.
They can't do that. That'd definitely be illegal.
Yeah. This is a great question here. If you know, from Elizabeth, it would be interesting to know how many square feet of vacant downtown property Scientology owns that Clearwater residents are supposed to forget about.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know that it's a lot. Do you know, I wasn't clear on the green space. The green space, they talked about having monuments. Yeah. Are those monuments, are they going to be like way to happiness precepts? There was something about some type of L. Ron Hubbard quotes being throughout the green space, or was it like, I don't know what else they would publicly share. Code of honor would be weird.
Well, it sounds like whatever video these people saw is different than the renderings that have been published, even in things like their own Impact magazine, or not Impact magazine, just the LRH Hall exhibit or whatever. Here, let me, I'm going to pull up a couple photos here. Let me get them ready.
Yeah, let's take a look. I'm going to look at a couple questions. Wouldn't the attorney know already if this is a legal action they are taking? Ingrid, you would think, but so. Oh, and there's Fat Grammy. The council skirted the legal letter of the law, but flunked on meeting the spirit of the Sunshine Law. Yes, Fat Grammy, I would agree with that. Because again, just because you can on some things doesn't mean that it's in the best interest of the public that you serve to do that.
Okay, can I share a screen?
Mm-hmm.
Got the right one. Is this the right one? Okay, let me zoom in on this. I think if you look at these in front of the big orb,
yeah,
those are probably the way to happiness precept statues.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
And so I guess this is when they talked about the landscaped space. But here's where, again, I just really scratch my head. Everything you see in this photo can be constructed without Scientology buying the street.
Yeah, because is that the street right there then? Is that the street in question right in front? It is the street will be the front of L. Ron Hubbard Hall?
Yeah, the street that literally is in front of L. Ron Hubbard Hall is the street they're trying to buy. If I can get a slightly...
I wonder what that orb is.
I know. What's the orb? In this version of it, there's no orb.
Yeah.
But you still see the way to happiness precept statues.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Can you see my cursor? I don't know if you guys can see my cursor.
I think I could. Yeah. It's really light though, but yeah.
I can't tell from looking at a photo like this how they would physically close off the street. I don't get it at all.
Yeah. Because they wouldn't want to. And maybe I don't know. Do you think that owning it is enough that they don't need to close it? Because if they own it, they can get rid of any protesters, anybody live streaming out there, and just get rid of them because they
I
own
think
the
that's a
street.
possible. Well, see, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that maybe owning it is enough, and they're not. Oops, and they're not going to close it. But by owning the street, they can at least keep protesters off the sidewalks, and that's what I thought. Except the council members keep using the phrase "closing the street."
Yeah, it's a street vacation. That's what they
No,
were,
no,
right?
the city's just vacating their right. They're right. By vacating means they're vacating their legal right to the street.
Mhm.
It doesn't. It's just it's a legal thing, not a physical thing.
Yeah.
But just because you vacate the street and it's privately owned doesn't mean the street gets closed down. But the council members keep talking about it as if it's going to be closed down, and I don't totally understand it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they understand it either. I think that's kind of the whole point is they don't seem to be sure about what's going on there. Yeah, and even Animal Audit Corner says, according to the 14th Amendment, which would prohibit due process, it cannot benefit one person. It has to benefit everyone, not just one group. And in your speech, I'm glad you brought that up, that Scientologists represent a small percentage of the population.
Yeah, less than 2%. And legally, as far as making legal arguments, like I'm going to bet that someone like Ryan Cotton would say the way this benefits all the citizens of Clearwater is that if we let them do this, they're going to do all these other great things that they promised. I don't know that you can make that legal argument. Like the transaction itself has to be for the benefit of the people of Clearwater.
Yes.
Not all the things the person is promising you who you're doing the transaction for the benefit of.
Yeah.
Yes. And, it is the city attorney's job to know what is legal and not legal, but the city attorney could always just be missing information.
Yeah. Yeah, he could. Carrie says she's a downtown Clearwater resident and says, as a downtown Clearwater resident, thank you to you and everyone else that spoke. Ryan Cotton is an embarrassment and so proud to have not voted for him.
Hi, Carrie.
It's just getting so embarrassing. Itchy Thayton says Cotton is cheering for the cult to take the paper down off the windows, even though the cult is who put the paper up. Have you noticed?
He's like, see, they made a change. And you're like, did the change matter?
Yeah. That's what I'm not getting. I mean, you've been down there. Eric Rader was in town and did a walkthrough tour. Is it really looking different? What is any of what Ryan Cotton was saying true?
There's 3 buildings that Moises Agami owns that Scientology kicked all the residents out of and have been renovating to make them look back like what they did back in the original 1930s when brand new brick construction and all this kind of stuff. One of those buildings is pretty much recently sort of finished the exterior, so it looks finished from the outside.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, cool. It's a nice looking building. So what? Like, no one has ever said the problem with downtown Clearwater is the buildings are too shabby.
Yeah. That's true.
No one's ever said that. So it's like, no one's complaining about the buildings. We're complaining about the people and the culture. The lack of people. And the fact that they leave their buildings empty. I mean, anyway. It's one of these things where, like, is the specific things Ryan Cotton said true? You're like, sort of. They're just so irrelevant. It makes you wonder why you even saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what doesn't make sense. And this is had he ever run before that you know of for city council?
No.
What about his stepdad? Had his stepdad been on before?
Oh, yeah. Stepdad's been on forever.
Oh, okay. So he just keeps being reelected then.
Yeah. He's been on the council several times. You can only serve 2 consecutive terms.
Yeah.
But yeah, Albritton's in the middle of his 2nd consecutive term, but I think he was on the council previously.
Wow. So it's not like he doesn't know. And it was surprising too to hear Ryan Cotton not know about how many buildings were in that Scientology owned that were around there. Just for someone who's lived there for, what do you say? He's a second generation native who's lived there for 10 plus years, to not know that even, well, if you've been there 10 years, well, 10 years ago, these promises were made. Like, I think it was Hoyt who showed up to say, hey, they made us the same promises. It didn't happen.
Exactly. And I love how Ryan was like, Tracy McManus asked me, well, did you know they own over 200 properties in downtown Clearwater? He's like, no, I didn't know. He's like, but then when we were with David Miscavige, I asked him, he's like, yeah, that's true. It's like, okay, yeah, of course he's telling it's true now. It's already been exposed and reported.
Yeah.
But he did it all secretly after promising the city they weren't going to buy more property. He's like, well, he told me the same thing Tracy told me. It's like, oh, Ryan, how did we get to this point?
Yeah. Well, the fact that he didn't know that they weren't going to see the money, the 1.375 million for 6 years.
Yeah.
That was shocking when that was found out. And when you said that in your speech, how could you see how he react? Like, I'm just like, what did he look like?
That was him.
Oh my gosh. He just had to have like hated you.
Yeah. He seems to hate anyone opposed to this project, actually. This is why I ran for government. This is the inefficiency I ran for government to get rid of.
Which that didn't even really make sense. It's almost like, did you actually run? Like, this is complete speculation. Someone from Scientology approach you and be like, hey, this would be a great idea, and then support you in it? Because you had said that Scientologists were told to vote for him.
Yeah.
Right.
And I forget. Well, he was running against Mark Bunker. I mean, the Scientologists were told to vote for him. He is the person they were told to vote for. And there was more people running. It wasn't just Mark and Ryan.
Yeah.
But he is the candidate the Scientologists were told to vote for.
Yeah. In the Clearwater City Council, are these paid positions?
Yes.
I think they do get paid, right?
They voted themselves a pay raise recently. So I forget, is it 50,000? Mark would know. Is it Mark in the chat?
I don't think so. I haven't seen him, but possibly.
Yeah.
Amber says that I went to Clearwater and my mom wanted to bring my husband to the Way to Happiness building. My question is, did my mom call beforehand and that's why it was open? That was a long time ago. That's similar to what a few other people brought up, is you can't actually walk into any of these buildings like the Citizens Commission on Human Rights or WISE or the Way to Happiness or the Volunteer Ministers because no one's there.
I think you can. It depends. Like if we're around, then they lock all the doors, and most of I wonder. Things look a lot different down there when we're there than when we're not there.
Yeah.
Like when we're outside the Superpower building, you don't see a soul. But if you do a surprise drive-by, they're everywhere.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes more sense. How do they see? Back in my day when I was there was nobody protesting. So I never got to experience what that would be like. I remember my daughter Shelby, when she was a student there, telling me later on after we had left that they would keep the students inside and tell them that there were violent protesters outside and they weren't allowed to go to stores. But the truth was the Tampa Bay Times was doing articles about Scientology.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they do the same thing.
If they do the same thing,
like do they just, how do they manage to shut it down so fast, I guess is my question. Because like you said, if you do a random drive-by, but either
they've got security guards at every door on the walkie-talkies, at every door in every corner, and watching the cameras. So they've got the license plate reader as well.
What's that?
It's a camera that captures license plates, and an alert will pop up if it's a license plate that they're looking for. Yeah.
Just anybody who drives by the flag buildings?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. In 2024, council members made 45,000. In May, 49,000. Thank you, Mama Opal.
Yeah.
Do you know how long they've been doing that?
Oh, many years.
Wow. But nobody has a problem with that. That's just
illegal.
It's not illegal.
It's not illegal.
Holy crap. So do you think they keep a master list? Like, do you think they've gotten to the point where it's computerized? Like, okay, this like it's, instantaneous, or they have to go check a list?
No, where it's instantaneous. Like the software will send an alert if the captures the license plate on the list of the ones they want to know about.
Yeah.
The license plate reader is under the bridge on the Fort Harrison.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I'm guessing, anyone that's a regular protester is someone that they're gonna. I'm sure it's one of these things where they can make a really long list.
Yeah. Wow. Geez. I don't know why I never knew that, but I didn't know that. That's actually shocking to me that everybody who drives by gets their license plate read. Hey, Ken's channel.
Aloha.
Hi, all. When we went to Clearwater, we were terrified to eat lunch anywhere downtown because we didn't want to support a Scientology business. Is that common, or are we just being paranoid?
Yeah, I think that is common, which is why the businesses that succeed are businesses that are patronized by non-Scientologists. And, people who live here know that the businesses, the truth is, in the downtown area, none of those businesses that are like food and drink establishments, none of them at this point are actually owned by a Scientologist. It's just the buildings that are owned by Scientology and Scientologists. But yeah, but that's one of the reasons people don't come down, is because they assume all the businesses are owned by Scientologists, and they feel the same way that you felt.
Yeah, and it
And so-
scares them away. Marcy, thank you for gifting 5 life after a cult membership. Shout out to you. Everybody say aloha in the chat who got one. I wanted to ask you, before I let you go, a little bit about the Whitney Mills case. You did a video earlier this week about that. It would seem, it's Lisa McPherson 2.0 in a lot of ways, except this time they didn't keep her at the Fort Harrison. She was allowed to stay in her house. Given that this is it's the same situation in ways, but a different time, do you think that this will be more impactful as far as people waking up about, Scientology? Or, because in Clearwater, if it's in the paper, even Scientologists could come across it and see it.
I don't know if it'll be more impactful, but I think it could be just as impactful. The Lisa McPherson thing was pretty impactful.
Yeah.
This is equally disturbing. And I think this lawsuit will settle.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard anything about potential criminal prosecutions relating to this case. What was on the Lisa McPherson thing? The criminal charge was actually going to be against. It was going to be against a number of the Scientologists who had been dealing directly with Lisa McPherson.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why there wouldn't also be potentially criminal proceedings relating with what happened with Whitney.
Yeah. Do you think it'll change anything in the way that Scientology operates in handling people who are having, mental health breakdowns, which she obviously was? Like, now that this has happened again and again.
I feel like yes.
Yeah.
Because what changed after the Lisa McPherson case? The change is they basically won't let you anywhere near the Flag Land Base if you have any history of suicidal ideation or heart problems or anything.
Yes.
You have to have medical clearance to be on the base. I'm having some trouble really envisioning what they would change with the Whitney thing. Because part of me is are they going to actually just start forcing, demanding that people who are exhibiting symptoms like Whitney see non-Scientologist doctors?
That is exactly what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Because the liability is too much.
There's another wrongful death that David Minkoff was involved in that I found out about this week that I'm going to do a video about. There was a woman up in Portland, Oregon. This was, I want to say, about 10 years ago. And she was very, she struggled with a lot of health problems. Including being diabetic and including having other serious health problems. And none of the doctors, in order to start the purification rundown, you have to get a medical sign off.
Yeah.
And none of the doctors that she went to in Portland would sign off on her to do the Purif program.
Do you know why?
Because of her health problems.
Yeah. So
they sent her folder to David Minkoff in Clearwater, Florida, and he signed off on it, and she died.
Oh, no.
She died one night going home after having finished the Purif.
Finished for the day or finished it?
Finished for the day.
Wow. Yeah. How did she die?
Well, I don't have the email right in front of me. Yeah. Whether it was a heart attack, whether it was complete, low blood pressure that never came back up, which really would just be a heart attack, right? I'm not sure. I have the information, but the fact that the actual medical doctors who weren't Scientologists, or God forbid, when I dig into this, maybe it was even a local Scientology doctor who said, mm-mm. And they're like, well, we're going to ignore that. We're going to go to our in-house guy. We're going to use our in-house guy. And then she dies.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a video about that today or tomorrow. But
good. I can't wait to see
Minkoff's in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they could do that, to do it out of state like that. That's crazy. My hope is that because it continues to be so detrimental in terms of whether it's PR or just for the physician themselves, like at what point, if you're David Minkoff, do you not go, hey, I've had multiple people die. I mean, of course, as a physician, patients die, right, in the medical field, but there seems to be so many of them that are where there's this tie to Scientology. How does he not go, hey, maybe this isn't so great? You know what I'm saying? Like how, I don't understand that. I understand the first couple, like even the first time, but after that, how you don't protect yourself and go, I'm not doing this anymore as a physician.
Yeah. It's sort of how he makes all his money though. He's got a whole cottage industry of treating Scientologists.
That's true. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is so disturbing. I can't believe that happened again.
Yeah. And that's only 10 years ago. I mean, that's recent memory.
Yeah. I mean, that was before Whitney Mills then.
Yeah. Whitney Mills was only 2 years ago.
Wow.
2.5 years ago.
Do you think with this Whitney Mills case that Scientology is going to somehow protect or help Minkoff, or just throw him to the wolves at this point?
Oh man, it's kind of like Danny Masterson, right? They can't really afford to cut him loose.
Exactly.
They need him on sides,
or he might talk.
Yeah, but you realize the Minkoff family is so embedded in Scientology, between Max and Yuri and Rebecca and the spouses and the grandkids and the in-laws and the everything. I mean, and the Minkoff, and what's his name? David Minkoff he's getting up there in years too, right?
Yeah, he is.
So no, I think they will. I think they'll continue to have a united front, but you know what? When the argument at the hearing was, they said David Minkoff discharged his patient on this date, and then 3 weeks later she took her life, and he discharged her for not having followed his medical advice. And you go, but his medical advice turned out to be wrong. And so it made me suspicious as to what actually led to him discharging her as a patient. It made me think that he's like, uh-oh, I need to discharge her now. Like if it was a coordinated thing with Scientology, because the DFP, the director of processing, was directly liaising with Dr. Minkoff and anyone else that Whitney Mills was seeing. Yeah. And it makes me wonder if it was actually a coordinated plan to have her discharged as a patient, pull the people that are watching her, try to distance themselves from it, because they literally already recommended to her that she take her own life. And it doesn't, like what they have said in the hearings, like that doesn't check out. Like I don't see Dr. Minkoff discharging a Scientologist as a patient. I don't see that.
Yeah. Wow. It's just going to get worse. I can't wait to see how it progresses. So I'm going to be watching your videos on it. You do such a great job breaking down the legal stuff. When I have to read something like that, I'm like, ah.
I think the next hearing is going to be on May 1st, but we're going to be heading to Hawaii on that date. And then the next council meeting on this subject, I think, is on May 15th. And we're going to be flying back from Hawaii on that date.
Yeah.
So we're going to miss these things, but I have to make sure someone else is there.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on the chat. I know you got to get going. You got a full day and hopefully that video to do because I'm going to be watching. So I appreciate
Pleasure as always.
Yep. I'm going to continue on and do some question of the day stuff. But thank you so much, Aaron. I will talk to you later.
All right. See you guys later.
All right, everybody, let's get to some of your questions and your responses to our question of the day, which was, what would you name the street that the Fort Harrison Hotel is on? Mama Opal says Protester Way. I like that. Me and Taz. Cult Alley. That is a good one too. Mama Opal. Satan Thoroughfare. Robin Miners. Hotel California Avenue. That's right. Because you can check in anytime you like, right? But you can never leave. Mama Opal, the tollway. Lisa Pete says the street of no returns. Abigail, Lisa McPherson Way. I agree. I think even Mark Bunker has been pushing that. I think it should be that. Arkansas Flamingo, yes. Lisa McPherson Way or Whitney Mills Way. I agree. That would be so absolutely amazing. Scientology Up North says Boulevard of Broken Promises. That is a good one. Super Weekend Warrior says it should be called the Bridge to Total Imprisonment. I like it. Candace says Suppressive People Drive. That's actually a good one. Mary James. Aloha. For being a member for 6 months. So happy the work is done and I can catch a live. Hi, Natalie and Aaron and all. I'm glad you're here. Let's see. Where's another answer? Oh, Linda Lou says the street should be called Bankruptcy Imminent. Super Weekend Warrior says, you know what? It would be great if Clearwater could evict the cult of Scientology from the city and cut off all water, electric, etc. from them. I agree. That will never happen, but yes. Chuck Ross, how can the sale of a street possibly be up to a handful of bureaucrats and not a ballot item for the people to decide? Incredible. I agree, especially knowing that Scientology is such a complicated topic, very touchy. People have a lot of feelings, rightfully so, about it. You would think that you'd want to right from the get-go share that Scientology has put in this request. We're having conversations about it. Hold a town hall. What are your pain points? What would you like to see if this were to go through? I think it would have been a lot better, but doing it the way they did it and having those, even if it was okay and per procedure for them to have those conversations, not in the public eye, I just still don't think that it's a good idea. Does it matter to you? Not to me. Cotton needs to be financially investigated. In my opinion, he is dirty. Could very well be. Laura Font, why are they selling the street to anyone? The public benefit is to have a street. There are other areas for monuments, truly. And the fact that even the mayor cannot say why Scientology needs to buy this street, I think says that Scientology themselves have not said why they need to buy the street, because it doesn't make any sense, especially based on what we just looked at with those renderings. Why? You don't need to close it. It doesn't, you can still do what you're doing. The only thing that I can think of, and I think Aaron mentioned this too, is that it's so that you can't have protesters there. I don't know. It just seems so weird. Purple Ducky, Fake Space Navy Boulevard. Good one. Let's see. What would Adam Carmona rename the street in front of the Fort Harrison? Boulevard of Broken Dreams. I love that. Catherine Churchill, why are the city council members meeting with David Miscavige one-on-one anyways? Exactly. I'm sure they requested a meeting. I'm not sure of anything procedurally that would block them from doing that individually. But it's suspicious that they're not really talking about exactly what happened in those meetings and exactly what was said. Bridge 1872. Aaron, they're going to barricade it like they did in LA. I think you could be right. I think you could be right about that. Jamie Castro, if they rename the street in front of the Fort Harrison Hotel, would call it Cult of Scientology Street. Good one, Jamie. Arkansas Flamingo says Broken Bank Account Boulevard. Chase Wave Way. Oh my gosh, they'd hate that. JB 808. Hey, my brother. Aloha to you. Murky Water Boulevard. That would be a good one. That would. Bella Notes for being a member for 8 months. Aloha, Nat and Aaron, just popping in. I'm glad you were here. Ooh, and good one. Highway to Hell. Carla's loving wife. Yes. Paulette Cooper Drive would be a good name as well to rename the street in front of the Fort Harrison. Catherine says, what about BT Trail? Can you imagine? Body Thetan Trail, Body Thetan Avenue, Body Thetan Parkway, Xenu Way. Chuck Ross says Operation Snow White Way. Run, don't walk away. Oh my gosh, you guys are getting really good at this. Dr. MLS, I agree. Minkoff is a quack. That is my opinion. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. At one point, does he not realize like he might need to, I don't know, protect himself and distance? Ken's channel, I agree. Major quack. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. Does it matter to you? Not to me. We had as high as 70 people on saunas at the same time. Ooh, Dr. Wooten never disapproved anyone. Wow. 70 people in the sauna. That's a lot. That's a lot. Who goes to Minkoff, Dr. MLS? I would assume just people at this point, Scientologists. Chuck Ross, great point. David Miscavige, David Minkoff, Danny Masterson. What is it with DMs in Scientology? Chuck Ross, that is an excellent point, and that is a little weird and odd, isn't it? You guys tell me what you think about that. If you're on the replay, jump in the comments. What are your thoughts on that? The Journey 2020 in 2010, the Watson Narcanon had to legally get a psychiatrist on call and change their name due to a death that no one reported for a year. Wow. Yep, they don't get away with it, even if they think that they are going to. Hunter Bay says, Minkoff gets big money from Scientology. I don't doubt it. It is probably how he's making a living. Susan P. says Minkoff should never be allowed to practice ever again. He is a death trap. Greggy, there's been one good thing that has come from the cult. All our wonderful ex-Scientologists and others who have spoken out against it. I agree with that completely. Thank you for saying that. That's right, Luna. Crimes against humanity since 1950. Absolutely. It just seemed that way. Did Minkoff go to med school? I believe so, because wait a minute. No, yes, because he worked in a hospital. That's when, right? Yes. Yeah, because he worked in the hospital. That's why the Scientologist took Lisa McPherson so far away, was to go to the hospital that he worked at. So he would have had to have gone to medical school for that, I believe. But yeah, the fact that he's still letting people onto the Purifin stuff is actually very disturbing. It really is. E.S. Gotcher says Scientologists care more about proving the tech is right than the lives of their own people, and Minkoff is their pawn in the deception. Yes, I would agree with that. That is true. Scientology up north says it's like Dr. Death 2.0. Yeah, exactly. Oh, our own Nancy Alley says Dr. Minkoff is a highly sought after speaker on natural health, healing, alternative medicine, and more as an expert on Lyme disease and ozone therapy. Ooh, so then a lot of his patients may very well be not Scientologists, but that's still scary considering, how he's been as a doctor for some Scientologists. Tony Hoban, good to see you. Bina says Purgatory Avenue. Oh, I like that one too. Talissa? I vote for Lisa McPherson Boulevard as the street name. I love that. Wow. That is a good one. It really is. Let's see. Sean speaks. You quickly mentioned non-Scientologists can rarely use their buildings. If you received an official invite to a non-Scientologist event there, could you attend? Me personally, no. They wouldn't let me on the property because I'm a declared suppressive person. And it would be that way with others. I remember once when they were out protesting Clearwater or surrounded by Scientology, George went up and was going to walk into the Fort Harrison Hotel. And nope, they turned him right back and turned him around and he got kicked out of there. So I do not think so. The public in general, though, if it's an event for public and you're not a declared suppressive person, I'm sure they'll let you in there. Yes, Lisa McPherson Way. Yes. I really think that's what it should be completely. I really do. Tumwater Troy. I'm surprised Miscavige doesn't have a street name for him. Right? I bet you it's coming. What if it ends up being like, yeah, we don't really want you to call it L. Ron Hubbard Hall, though. We'll call it what? Miscavige Hall? I don't know. He seems to be going in that direction. Bridge says non-Scientologists are referred to Minkoff. Unfortunately, family member was sent to Minkoff by their dentist 2 years ago. Wow. Wow. Interesting. Wow. Selena says license plate readers have been used by law enforcement for ages to locate stolen vehicles. What church in quotes, do you know needs a license plate reader? I mean, it's just next level crazy that Scientology has gotten away with this for such a long time. And that even the city, like that would have been a great thing to bring up to the city council. Like what they put a license plate reader under their bridge. Like why? Why would they need that? What is that about? Yet they're still totally allowed to do that. Hey, Liz Gale, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. We're just wrapping up, though. Tell me what you guys think about this. Jump in the comments if you're on the replay. What are your thoughts on the city council meeting in Clearwater and Scientology wanting to buy this street? What do you think about that? Do you have any other questions about it? I'm going to go through and check those out on the replay and then try and get them answered in another video. Jean says Miscavige Way to Hell Boulevard. That is a good one. Hunter Bay, I wonder what they would do if a non-Scientologist wanted to donate $1 million for a tax write-off. Oh, they'd take it. I'm pretty sure they would take it. I don't see why they would not. I also more would be like, why would a non-Scientologist want to do that? But I guess it could happen. Probably not, though. But I bet they'd take it. I bet they would. All right, that's what I got for you guys. Do me a solid, hit that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe as well. I hope everybody has an amazing cult-free weekend. I will see you later.